Borromeo Enrique Henriquez, Diablito de Hollywood, the Shadow King of MS-13I. Introduction: Borromeo Enrique Henriquez, known by his alias Diablito de Hollywood, is one of the most feared and influential criminal figures in Central America. His name invokes terror not only in the streets of San Salvador, but across international borders, as his legacy has impacted communities from Honduras to the United States. Unlike traditional gang leaders who enforce dominance through street-level brutality, Henriquez emerged as a strategic mastermind, directing operations, orchestrating killings, and negotiating political deals, all while imprisoned. Born into a country plagued by civil war and instability, he was shaped by violence from an early age. His rise within MS-13 coincided with the gang's evolution from a loosely organized group into a transnational criminal empire. Henriquez's unique blend of ruthlessness, charisma, and intelligence made him indispensable to MS-13's internal hierarchy, especially the feared Ranfla Nacional. His story is not only about crime, but about power, governance, and the failure of state systems. To address the roots of gang violence, this biography seeks to uncover the life of a man who became a legend in the world of organized crime, a man whose decisions have led to thousands of deaths, social collapse in urban neighborhoods, and a political crisis in El Salvador that continues to unfold. 2. Early life and initiation into gang culture. Borromeo. Enrique Henriquez's early years remain shrouded in some mystery, but most accounts agree that he was born in the late 1970s or early 1980s in El Salvador, during one of the bloodiest civil conflicts in Latin American history. This environment, defined by military crackdowns, guerrilla warfare, and widespread poverty, created fertile ground for gangs like MS-13 to flourish. As a child, Henriquez would have witnessed daily violence and likely faced food insecurity, domestic instability, and limited access to education. These conditions pushed many young boys into street life, where gangs offered protection, brotherhood, and status. Henriquez joined the Hollywood clique of MS-13, a subgroup known for its violent tendencies and symbolic ties to the gang's Los Angeles roots. From early on, he distinguished himself by his ability to command respect and instill fear. Initiation rituals for MS-13 often involve committing acts of extreme violence. In Henriquez's case, older gang members recognized his strategic thinking and potential. He was promoted quickly, moving from soldier to clique leader within a short span. His early reputation as someone who could manage internal disputes and carry out executions with efficiency contributed to his ascent. Henriquez internalized the gang's values, codes of silence, and rules of loyalty, setting the stage for his future rise to power. He began coordinating extortion schemes, drug trafficking routes, and retaliatory killings in response to rival provocations. Rise to power, from street soldier to Ranfla Historico. By the early 2000s, Henriquez had earned his place in the Ranfla Nacional, MS-13's top decision-making body comprised of leaders from various cliques. He was now responsible not just for one region or clique, but for operations affecting the entire country. While many gang members were imprisoned, Henriquez saw incarceration as an opportunity, not a setback. From within the penitentiary system, he built a communications network that rivaled corporate logistics chains. Corrupt prison officials, hidden cell phones, and written codes allowed him to issue directives with military precision. Henriquez helped reshape MS-13 into a more hierarchical, militarized organization. He instituted rules about territorial disputes, criminal profit sharing, and methods of torture. He also ordered purges of suspected informants and rivals within the organization. The power he wielded grew to the point that even free-roaming gang members deferred to him before launching major operations. One notable case involved the internal trial and execution of a clique leader who had misappropriated drug profits. Henriquez presided over the decision from behind bars. He was also instrumental in developing alliances with other criminal groups, including Mexican cartels, to ensure MS-13's access to weapons and narcotics. His leadership style was authoritarian, but his authority was rarely questioned. Fu, the murder campaigns orchestrated by Henriquez. Throughout the 2010s, MS-13 was responsible for thousands of murders in El Salvador, many of which were tied to Henriquez's direct orders. These killings served multiple purposes: retaliation, fear-building, message-sending, and discipline. One of the most chilling strategies involved targeting public transportation workers. When bus companies refused to pay extortion fees, Henriquez allegedly ordered the systematic assassination of bus drivers, resulting in dozens of deaths and a paralyzed transportation network. In another high-profile case, an informant known as Smiley was found mutilated after allegedly cooperating with police. Henriquez, informed of the betrayal, is said to have ordered the killing via encrypted messages relayed through intermediaries. His murder directives were often precise, specifying who should carry out the hit, what weapon to use, and what message to leave at the crime scene. This level of detail made MS-13's murders symbolic and theatrical as much as strategic. Henriquez also expanded MS-13's use of forced disappearances, in which victims were abducted and never found. These tactics sowed terror in communities and discouraged cooperation with law enforcement. For gang members who disobeyed or failed, the punishment was equally brutal. Executions of internal members were recorded and shared within the gang as warnings. Henriquez's reign of terror reached its peak between 2014 and 2016, a period considered one of the deadliest in El Salvador's modern history. Political deals and the 2012 truce in 2012. Facing international criticism over El Salvador's escalating murder rate, the government under President Mauricio Funes entered into a secret truce with MS-13 and rival gang Barrio 18. Henriquez was chosen to represent MS-13 during negotiations, recognition of his status and influence. The deal offered better prison conditions and some autonomy in return for a reduction in violence. For a short while, homicide rates in El Salvador dropped by over 40%. Henriquez used this truce not just to pause violence, but to consolidate power. He ensured that the gang's internal cohesion strengthened, that they could regroup, and that newer members were trained. However, the truce was politically toxic. Media investigations revealed that gang leaders were given cell phones, conjugal visits, and even steak dinners in prison. Public backlash led to the collapse of the truce. In 2014, following the collapse, Henriquez was accused of orchestrating a campaign of retaliatory violence. Targets included police officers, military personnel, and political figures. Killings increased dramatically, many coordinated via messages that authorities traced back to Henriquez's prison block. While the truce showed that dialogue was possible, it also demonstrated how deeply entrenched Henriquez was in the country's political and criminal systems. Influence from behind bars. Despite being imprisoned for years, Henriquez continued to run MS-13's operations with impunity. His prison cell functioned as a command center, equipped with smuggled phones, maps of gang territories, and ledgers tracking drug and extortion profits. He conducted weekly strategy meetings with other high-ranking members, discussing operations in Los Angeles, Guatemala, and Honduras. These meetings were sometimes facilitated by corrupt guards who turned a blind eye. One of Henriquez's primary tools was fear. He enforced loyalty through a strict code of conduct. Infractions were punished swiftly and mercilessly. His word became law, even outside the prison system. Investigations later revealed that he had given direct approval for over a dozen assassinations within a single month. Informants described how orders were passed through girlfriends, attorneys, and even religious visitors. Henriquez's role evolved into something closer to a warlord than a gangster. He influenced gang recruitment, international alliances, and even political events. His statements during the truce negotiations were dissected like government policy speeches. Although confined, his mental maps of the streets of San Salvador remained sharper than those of most police officers. Even government agents admitted in leaked reports that nothing significant happened in MS-13 without Henriquez's blessing. 7. Decline of power and legal proceedings. Beginning in 2022, under President Nayib Bukele's state of emergency, the Salvadoran government launched its most aggressive crackdown on gangs in history. Military raids, mass arrests, and the construction of a 40,000-bed mega-prison marked a new era. Henriquez was among those moved to high-security isolation, stripped of his privileges, and cut off from outside communication. The government released photos showing a gaunt Henriquez in shackles, symbolic of MS-13's supposed downfall. However, prosecutors warned that even from isolation, he might still be influencing operations. A series of mega-trials were launched, in which Henriquez stood accused of directing terrorist acts, ordering murders, and laundering criminal proceeds. Voice recordings and intercepted text messages were presented as evidence. In one, Henriquez allegedly gave step-by-step instructions for a killing, naming the victim and describing how to dispose of the body. Despite denying direct involvement, the weight of the evidence has positioned him as the face of gang violence in Central America. International observers from the UN and OAS monitored the trials, which drew media attention from around the world. 8. Legacy and Impact Borromeo. Enrique Henriquez's influence on MS-13 is undeniable. Under his guidance, the gang became more organized, more transnational, and more politically sophisticated. He turned prison into a base of operations and built an empire based on extortion, drugs, and fear. His legacy includes thousands of deaths, destroyed families, and entire neighborhoods living in fear. He has also become a cautionary tale, highlighting what happens when a state loses control of its prison system and its youth. His rise was enabled by systemic poverty, corruption, and weak institutions. Today, while his direct influence may be diminishing due to government crackdowns, his playbook remains active. New leaders continue to use his tactics, echo his organizational methods, and invoke his name with reverence. In the world of MS-13, Henriquez is not just a former leader. He is a myth, a legend, a symbol of what it means to be at the top of one of the world's most feared criminal enterprises.